Cartoons with John-Marc.
Hey, do you have a pencil and some paper? Let's begin today's lesson.
All right, this lesson I'm going to be going over with you on how to color this cute little cartoon dinosaur. I'm going to be working in Photoshop and working in layers. As you can see, all the way to the far right there, I have one layer, and I'm going to be coloring that for color 1, and above that one, that's the master layer with the line art. As you can see, I have it on multiply right now, and then there's also normal. I'll explain all these little tips and techniques. So first, as you can see here, I'm just going to quickly take my little brush and I'm going to just color it in. And here, that's layer 1. That's underneath the main one. As you can see here, the lines are shown above. Now, if I turn that one to multiply off, they disappear because the white is white. It's not transparent. Now, multiply makes that transparency. As you can see, there's 2 different layers that I have on multiply. Is on the top, so all the white would be transparent. And I'm not going to color on the top because if I do, I color on top of the lines. As you can see, I'm coloring on that layer. I don't want to do that. I want to color only on the bottom like this. So underneath, you're going to create a different layer for the pencil line above and make sure it's on multiply. And you can just quickly just lay in some flat colors. So this lesson is going to be to unfold. I'm going to actually share with you some tips and techniques, how the layers work and some of the effects that you can add from highlights and shadows and having multiple layers. The purpose behind this is understand how they can be positioned and useful and where you can make mistakes or makes it easier for you. Doing traditional art, you don't have this. You have one master layer all the time. And that's something that I want you to still practice doing traditional art. But so that you have an understanding when you have that background, you there come to on the digital aspect on the computer, and you will really improve your art and you'll understand what I have to say, and even more so. Once again, the computer is not an artist. You are the artist and you are the master that can create stuff. The computer cannot create what you can create in your heart and mind, as always. So what it did here is I laid in a quick little flat color. As you can see, that's on one layer. And that's on the layer just below the line art that I made in that transparency. And here we go with a little one on the top, another layer. Let me get that here. So this whole area here, what I wanted to share with you is one flat layer. That's what I wanted to share. That's what I highlight around the red. So that's just a flat layer. So the white is not exposed. It's not white, it's transparent. So now I'm going to create another layer. Okay. And what I'm going to do is create a little shadowing here. I'm going to use the eyedropper from time to time and switching my little watercolor brush that I made. So you can see here, I just quickly just have another layer all together on top of the first one I did. And I'm intentionally coloring a little bit quick and over the body area. So this is like his belly, intentionally, once again, so you can see that area here is overlapping and overlapping. And the reason for that is it's on top, as you can see. And the one on the bottom, it's on 2 different layers. So let me show that one. Okay, I turn off. There it is. Okay, you can see that's in one layer and this is one layer. This can work sometimes, but for instance, right now, it's not the best fit to do. So I would recommend just coloring on the same layer for right now. You can do that at times, but for this purpose, I'm going to say not to right now. But you can, as I said. All right, so I'm just making it nice and clean. And what you should also concentrate on is the bulky areas, like the body. As you can see, I colored everything, including the eyes and the tongue up ahead. So I'm not coloring around it. I fill it all in because I can have the eyes on another layer all together and the tongue as well.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Looking for a comic book that the whole family can enjoy? Family friendly, colorful, great stories, actions, suspense, comedy? We got you covered. Visit our website. That's jmg-studio.biz.
And now, back to our show.
All right, I created a background for the sky really quick. That's on another layer altogether, and that's below the actual colors. You can see the dinosaur. I'll rotate them as you can see the sky, and when you move them around on top, how they play into one another's. All right, so the sky is on the furthest level, and then comes the dinosaur, the flat color, and then comes the actual um, line art that I have. So I'm going to just work on this one right now. Here, let me get back onto that layer. I'm going to create some little spots, and this is going to be intentionally a mistake, what I'm going to show you, and the purpose behind that and the reason I'll explain when I get to it. But so you can say to yourself, okay, I did the belly. You can see that, and now I want to do the body, and now I have these little spots and stripes, and I want them to be green. What could go possibly wrong when you want to shade it? If this was just flat art, and you're just filling in like a little, like crayons or magic markers, you're fine. But I want to do some gradation, adding some highlights and some shadowing. And there's just could be a little problem with those stripes and those little stripes on the far right of the tail. All right, so I'm changing that. Let's get over here a little darker here for the eyedroppers for little sky. For his belly there, it's an eyedropper I use. That's when I'm using the option button, and I can change and get to the eyedropper quickly. Okay, so I'm just going to change that color on the bottom. So the one leg I'm making a little bit darker. I'm going to do the same for the arm. So that's like on the back side of the little dinosaur here. It kind of separates. That's like the shadowing. If the light source is coming from the top, right, or front on facing him. All right, so you can see here I have the different layers here. I have the tail, okay, the legs here, the shadow, the whole body, should I say. Now I have to still color in his little claws there too. So I'm just going to make them a little brown. And you can say, do you like that? Nah, I like that maybe of a darker purple. All right, let's change that. Does I have the saturation or the hue and saturation? So I'm going to make a little bit less color and a little darker. So this is actually almost like in the same family of the color of his body, the purple, but a little bit darker, as you can see here. And you can add some highlights on there. You can make the toenails blue if you want to, yellow. It's your choice, but I just switched it out right away. So understand when I'm coloring, I use my hue, saturation, and brightness. That's how I love working when I'm coloring, and that's my preference. All right, so right now you can see here the face, everything's flat. I can use the eyedropper and quickly change the color background. Now this is another custom watercolor brush that I create, this one here. And what the purpose is, I can go really light, okay, really light and push, or really hard too, and I kind of blend it. Now you'll see with the mistake that I had to share. I'm going to reduce this a little smaller. That's fine. So that's for his body right here. And let's make like a shadow if I'm adding the shadows. What could go wrong when I'm coloring here? I'm covering over the green, what I just colored in. Now that's a problem, but at the same time, to easily do it, you should not worry about the spots first. Don't worry about that. Do them layer on another layer. Keep them all together with this highlight. So that's the intentional mistake. And now I come back here, I'm just adding some nice little blending in there. Let me switch that a little bit brighter now. A little highlight here. So when I'm blending it makes it easier with all the tail with one stroke. And it's a little lighter, 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 heavier, heavier, heavier between when I'm blending it and the opacity. So the purpose is you want to think of the big areas and what the other areas on top, like the eyeballs, the spots, his mouth, inner mouth, and his tongue, don't want to have that always colored at the same time, because then you're fighting, you're trying to be very careful where you're blending. And you look at the eyeball, that could be one of the last things, as well as the tongue to color in. And I just soften the brush so it's a little bit more of a blender right now. Blending in that purple there. So that's the reason why you want to have this on one layer right now, not a multiple layers, the body, all shading and highlights And the shadows you can have on another layer. But for right now, the main body, I would probably keep it all together so when you're blending the colors, it's much easier. And there's a little bit more highlight on the back of his tail and his neck. A little of his face, on his nose, going around here and there, on the top of his arm. Maybe by his knee. A little highlight maybe on their side there too, a little bit back there. And just remember, it doesn't have to use the same color skin. You can also use blues, like the sky right there. Okay, and you can change that. I'll get that with a head in 1 second. Okay, let's change that to a blue, to a cool. So now I'm adding a different tone to the shadow part. Underneath his chin there, underneath his nose, his mouth. All right, a little bit more. I'm blending it in there, and I chose blue, more of a highlight because it's a warm color, kind of cool. It's a cool color. I'm not warm, I'm sorry. A cool color, and it's because it's also the blue sky that's behind him. Trying to blend that on there, underneath his leg there, kind of give some more that blue tone on there. And let's get that little sky a little bit brighter. Okay, let's the dark and blend that just a little bit heavier, a little darker shadow. I'm just going to play. And this lesson is not a perfect rendering and coloring technique. It's more of a lesson, again, to understanding the layers. And I'm trying to do a little shadowing and a little highlight. If you go to my website, you can definitely see more of my finished airbrush and watercolor. I spent a lot more time. I could spend like a couple hours airbrushing this one in, or I'll use my watercolor brush and it'll look really, really sharp. But this is not the point for this lesson, just so that you understand the layers and blending and when I'm using tools and mixing, and very, very quick. Like the different shadows underneath his chin, his arms. And then you can bring back with another purple and blend it back again. If you made a mistake, get the eyedropper, which I love, quickly. You can blend that a little bit more there. All right, underneath his leg, his body there. Okay, what else now? What else can I see? Okay, maybe a little darker. Just a little darker. Maybe let's get a little bit smaller right now so I can get like a hard edge. So it's not so feathery. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Like right behind his arm there, a little bit heavier, a little darker. Behind his back leg. All right, his tail. What else? What else? Let's just see this quickly. And as you can see, I'm not coloring all in perfect lines either. So the whole body, you can just see that. All right, let's get to that layer on off. You can see how they're all attached on one layer. And that was intentional for that one. So I have another highlight. I take the eyedropper and I'm like, you know what? Let's mix the green one, maybe. Should I? Do the spots next? Yeah. Maybe. Oh, okay, let me see. Okay, let me make this a little lighter here. Let me add some more highlights first. I'm just thinking as I'm going along right now, a little bit bigger. Let's get this a little bit higher. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. That happens. So when you're thinking of one thing, what you want to do, and you're looking over the whole entire character, and you're like, yeah, this is better. When I'm adding some little red tone in there.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, do you have an artist in your family that likes to draw and sketch? We got these 3 cartoon books that your kids will definitely enjoy. So what are you waiting for? Visit our website, that's jmg-studio.biz.
And now, back to our show.
All right, so that red I'm adding just to give it a little bit more of a highlight. I like that a lot better now. And I'm just shrinking up my little watercolor brush to give a hard highlight. A little by the nose, maybe on the arm here and there. Okay, what else can I do? Where else? See, I just have it on and off there, that whole layer. Okay, that's all set together right now on one flat layer. Whoops, sorry about that. So here's another layer, and this one I can actually make as a highlight layer. Another one all together. So I have several layers you can see that are working to play. And I'll explain why you can do this now. All right. This is like reverse with that tail issue. Now this is on another layer and I can go really sharp edge. But if I make a mistake and I don't like it, I can turn it off, or I could just throw it away and redo it. Meaning, so the body that I had created right now with all the blending there really quick, I like. And if I put the highlights on here, if I don't like what I did, I'm like, oh, how do I undo what I just did all over the body? Maybe I don't want to have it with a white highlight. I might want to have a yellow or a cool or a warm highlight. Well, I don't have to worry. I can just turn on, turn off. You can see turn on, turn off. So if I don't like the highlights, it's that simple to undo immediately. And you can then change it too, to have it cool or warm color highlights. I'm just going to get the back of his eye there a little bit darker there, a little shadow on the back side of his eyeball there. I'm getting back on the main dinosaur layer. This is not on the highlight layer. All right, anything else? Okay, a little shadow. You know, let's make it a little bit bigger there. Let's get that a little bit darker there. That's better. That's better. I like that. That's like right behind that angle, a little darker there. Looking good. A little bit more. I've just switched that to be even darker, a little bit more there. Roughing it in there a little bit more over here too. Yeah, the toes over here and the fingers and his hands. Okay, this is smaller to fit that in. So again, as you can see, I'm being really quick with the positioning of the color. I'm just quickly going through there. All right, and just let's make the hands here a little darker. They're hanging down. The light's not on there. Okay, that looks better. I like that a little darker here. Okay, now what? All right, let's check this out. So that's that layer here. That's the highlight layer there. Okay, I'm going to make a little blue right now. So on the highlight layer, I'm coming back and I'm getting some cool blue right now, mixing in with that that bright pinkish on there for there. Let me get the highlight on the back side. Yeah, that looks cool. So again, so if the highlights don't work, I can easily just erase them, what I just did on that layer, and I'm not affecting the main body that I just colored in. And like I can erase there, you can see I just erased that there, and I didn't affect the body at all. You can see the highlight when I turn, so I can come right back and add that in there. And right on the front of his nose, there, and the top of his eyebrow. Okay, the back of his head. A little blue maybe there. Pushing down the bottom. Yep. Highlight in the back. Yeah. Okay. That's looking good. So you can see on, off the layer. So if I don't like it, I can redo it. So now let's do the stripes and the spots. I'm going to create another layer once again. All right. And this layer will be just for that green one, possibly. Or could I group it with another area of the dinosaur? Now, when I color all those stripes in, the green ones, the highlights are above that. So they're going to be reflecting on that green flat color, as you can see. You may or may not see, but I'll show that in a second. And you can see. So now, when I color in the dinosaur body on that lower level, I'm not going to affect these spots and the stripes. They're separate from the actual art. Here we go. See, on, off, and that stripes, I moved it above. There you go. And if I move it below and highlights, there you go. So once again, the highlights are off that I have. All right, and now I can add a little bit bigger. Let's say now let's let some darker green in there for there and here. Should I do a blend with another color? You know what? Let's make it a brighter green. A little brighter green there on the top. I like that. That's a little bit better. And once again, that's on that same layer for the stripes and the spots right now. So if you don't like it, you can turn it off and redo it very simply without messing up your whole dinosaur body that you just colored in. All right, let's make it a little bit smaller and get more of a highlight, maybe a little brighter. There we go, a little bit more yellow. So as you can see, I turn on, turn off, turn on. Okay, let's get a little bit brighter and get his eyeballs. All right, so as you can see now, on that same layer with the spots, I can do the eyeball. They're not in the same area, so if I turn on, turn off, or need to erase, it's not a problem. So there we go. So what I like to do is think ahead, so you don't have to have a layer for the stripes, a layer for the eyes, and the layers for the inside mouth and tongue. You could have all those elements in one layer if you want to. going to add a little shadowing on the eyeball inside there. I kind of like play with a nice teal. Saturate a little bit more, a little darker. Get a bit smaller for the inside, a little bit more of a shadow. And I'm going to show you what I do with the highlights when I do the highlights for the eyeball. But before that, I got to color it in. Let's give him a little blue eyeball. All right, let's get the brush a little bit wider, a little bigger. Okay, that's good. So what you can see now is when I'm coloring, okay, with that blue for the eyeball, it's still below the line. So if I had a highlight, it's going to give a little issue. So what do I do about that? Let's get a little highlight. And shrink a little bit. I might just give it a little bit better here. On the outside. Yeah, that looks good. The little shine on the eyeball. I'll explain that. Here we come. So right now that layer, and I will create a new layer that's above the sketching. It's above the sketching. Now when I color in here white, it covers that over. It's solid white. You can see that now, that little dot, those little dots, that highlight. So the pencil lines aren't coming through. I'll show you. It's hidden. You can't see it. It's gone. But they're there. If I move it up, here we go. Let me move it above it, then boom, it's right back. So the highlights I always put on the top layer if I'm doing special highlights. And then I have the other coloring below. All right. Let's get a little darker red for the tongue. And the tongue doesn't have to be red. It could be any color, as you know, too. Whatever you are using your imagination, you could even use it like maybe it's a blue or green. I just chose red, my preference. Okay, at this time, a little highlight there a little bit more. And let's get that color there. It gets a little bit darker, a little blue, and we'll color in the nostrils right now. That's looking good. I like that, how that's coming out. All right, so there's the body for the most part. As you can see, this is pretty much not done. If I was doing it much slower, it'd be a lot better. So let's go back to that sky. All right, from the sky, okay, I can actually have the background. Again, the sky is going to be the lower level. And oops, let's get this brush a little bit bigger for the green grass. A little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, I'm coloring it in. It is not on the blue sky whatsoever. It's on another layer altogether. And I love this. This is going to be fun. This is just quick. I'm just going to do some ground covering and shading, and I'm going to give you a little fun tip on shading. And you don't want to use like black for shading. What color would you use for shading? Maybe, oh, I'm not going to say. I'm going to wait till I get there. So I'm just going to make this a little lighter for now, and I'm going to put some bushes and some clouds, and I can play around with the movement. I'm blending some white on the bottom there, blending it on top of the green intentionally, so it kind of softens it up, blurring it out. All right, let's get some green and blending that over the white a little bit more soft. That's fine. This isn't perfect again, but again, you'll get the point where I'm just playing with. So I have another layer, and I'm going to make for like the little bushes in the background. All right, so let's change the color. I'm going to make it like a dark bluish green. Okay, let's get a little bit bigger. That's fine. That's fine. So I'm just going to quickly go there. So this is actually below the grass again, just below the grass. So the sky's lower level and the grass, then the bushes here. And as you can see, when I push over and pick up and down, I get that like that watercolor, or it feels like a magic marker feel. The more pressure if I go over it again and again. And you can mix the layers in this case for the background. I might have the bushes on top of the grass too. Bring it back on to blend it in the, like, let me get a little saturation less down there so it's not so colorful. And let me move that on the layer with the grass there intentionally, so blending it between the two layers there. All right, moving a little bit over on the other side. And on the side here, a little bit blending down here, a little there. So I'm mixing the background here where the bushes are on two layers now, on the green grass and on its own layer. All right, now let's get a little bit light. Let's get a bigger brush. Okay, small. I want to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do some grass right now, just quickly. Little spike grass here and there. I was thinking of something else, but yeah, that just put some grass blades popping up right on that layer, a little in between here and there. Do, 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 do. Let's get another layer in between there and get for some branches on that layer there. I'm just going to make a little dark, like little branches for the bushes you barely see pulling through here and there, random, and however, just so it gives some more depth. I like that. I like that. That looks good. And back to the sky. Now, here we go. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, give some more blue. Bigger. Where is it? There we go. A little dark blue and a little light blue, and then I'll add some clouds in there. Let me just blend that in there. You know, this is like middle of the day. Could be, you could do it sunset, sunrise, and change the tone of the sky. I had a lot of clouds in there, mountains in the background, pterodactyls flying in the background, or you maybe have a cityscape in the background. Just joking, just using your imagination. So now I'm making it a little brighter on the bottom, and that's how you can see another layer. So I'm not going over those bushes again. So that's just the background. All right, so let's do if I'm doing clouds now, I'm going to bring it down a little bit smaller. So with the clouds here, which is fun, on another layer, once again, the purpose is not to be on the blue, because if you make a mistake, you can just turn it off or redo it. So these are just quick clouds that I'm just putting on out and around. That's a little smaller, and wiggling around here and there. Highlight. Nothing major, just very simple. And the purpose, I'll go in there, see on, off. But now watch. If I change it, I have that. Now I can move the cloud anywhere I want to. I could size it, make it smaller, whatever. It's not the full amount of the actual, it's not on the blue layer, what I meant to say. And over here, I'll do it again on that same cloud layer. Okay, just make it a smaller one, a little different layer. Let's get a little bit smaller. Push it all the way through, a little smaller again. Let me get a little smaller. That's better. Yeah, this is looking good. Yeah. So what you really want to pay attention to is how you build your layers and what you put on those layers when working in Photoshop. There's many different ways of doing it. This is one out of many. As you can see, I turn on and off. There's many different ways, and even using the opacity, I can change that on the opacity, make it brighter or darker too, with the clouds that blend in there and everything. So I hope you learned something new with this lesson with layers, and when coloring with highlights, and the tips when you're thinking, always think ahead of time. But wait, before I say goodbye, I have that special surprise for you with the shadows. That's right. What do I mean? Shadow. So I'm using just a dark green. You could do that, right? You could do a dark green. It could work, right? Get a little bit darker if you wanted to and have it on there. But you know what? I don't want to do that. Let me turn it off 1 second. Oops. 1 second. Turn it back on. Undo all that. There we go. Backtrack. So what color will I use for a shadow? You ready? And it's not because he's purple. I am using a purple tone. You'll see what I mean. Purples I love. It's a combination of warm and cool color. So when you're using it, let me move it above. There you go. So you see the shadow, but on grass, purple doesn't look right because of the texture. Give it a second. Give me a second. Let me just roughly put this really quick shadow area for it. Let me like a little bit bigger, blending it. Okay, for his head. Give me a moment. I'm going to use a little special trick. So even though it's purple, it's not, grass doesn't turn purple from your shadow, obviously. You know that. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to go to multiply. From normal, I'm going to go right to multiply. Look at that. It changed the color. I love that when it does that. So the purple blends in and multiplying the layer between the green grass and the actual purples blending in there. Now you can also change the opacity. Watch this. You can go brighter or darker or lighter. You can know if it's a light shadow or heavy shadow. Use those options that you feel best for. But that kind of blends it in. So I'm not using like browns. I'm not using blacks or the color. I'm actually using a purple. And then you can use a multiply, and then you can change the opacity. That just gives more life to the shadow, so it's not flat. That's when you have the warm and cool colors mixing in between. Now I'm safe to say I like what I did. So just remember, when you get to this spot, always, I say, we'll sign and date, share with your family and friends. And I hope you really enjoy this lesson and learn something. And have a blessed day.